Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar. Thanks for joining us. My name is Matt Pullen. I work here at Jamf in the product marketing team focusing on education. And in today's webinar, we'll be diving into some of the areas where IT's role in education is evolving in 2025. Let's take a quick look at our agenda. The main section is going to be looking at the evolving role of IT in education. What is taking place in education in 2025 that will have an impact on the role of IT. Next, we'll take a look at strategies that can support educators, students and parents in making sure they're part of the conversation where technology is implemented. And finally, we'll look at the role of Jamf in education for IT leadership, supporting how schools can understand how technology deployment starts with leadership decisions and goes all the way through to impact for students. So let's get started. What is creating these changes around IT and education? First of all, we know that teachers rely more on technology for lesson delivery, student engagement and assessments. IT admins are shifting from being troubleshooters to strategic partners, helping educators maximize technology's effectiveness in the classroom. And we know that budgets remain a major concern in education. IT teams must find ways to reduce costs while maintaining high quality tech experiences for students and teachers. This often includes optimizing software licenses, extending device life cycles, and implementing cloud-based solutions. IT is no longer just a support function. It's a core driver of educational innovation. And school leaders expect their IT teams to contribute to strategic decisions, ensuring that technology investments align with long-term learning goals. As we said, in 2025, IT professionals are not problem solvers. They are leaders in digital transformation. Their evolving role ensures technology enhances those learning experiences, remains secure, and meets the needs of students, teachers, and administrators. So let's take a look at some of the more specific things that are changing across the landscape in 2025. Schools are increasingly adopting one-to-one device programs, ensuring that each student has access to a personal device. This shift, along with blended learning models like mixed learning, online instruction, and in-person instruction, require IT teams to manage more devices, networks, and software than ever before. The adoption of one-to-one device programs in the US alone has been steadily increasing. Research by FutureSource Consulting indicates that the percentage of schools implementing one-to-one device programs rose from 61% in 2020 to 63% in 2021, with expectations for continued growth. And that has an impact on a need for more robust security. With more student and faculty data being stored digitally, cybersecurity threats are also on the rise. IT admins must implement robust security measures to protect student privacy, while also ensuring compliance with regulations like FERPA and GDPR. With this increased use of digital devices and online platforms, schools are more vulnerable to cyber threats, and IT admins need to be agile to meet those threats, making sure that there's no interruption to learning taking place. AI, which we've seen, is a huge influence across all areas, and it's something which is becoming more and more integrated into education. From personalized learning platforms to admin automation, IT teams must support and manage these technologies whilst ensuring they enhance rather than replace effective teaching practices. Artificial intelligence is playing a significant role in transforming education. It can support that personalised learning, can automate admin tasks, and provide intelligent tutoring systems. And this integration requires IT professionals to manage and support these advanced technologies. And that means being able to switch it on or off when it's useful or not useful within classroom learning environments. making sure teachers still believe in the technology because it's being used effectively when they choose for it to be used and not getting in the way of learning. And finally, schools need to start to think about how they support all students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, making sure they have equal access to technology and digital resources. IT teams play a critical role in maintaining those accessibility standards, troubleshooting connectivity issues, and providing necessary support for those devices wherever they're being used. Ensuring equal access to technology for all students is a growing concern. The OECD's report on trends shaping education discusses the importance of addressing digital divides and promoting inclusivity, highlighting the role of IT in facilitating access to digital resources. We know that with more one-to-one devices being in the hands of students, when those devices go home, that's a critical part where learning can really develop and flourish, as long as it's supported in a way to allow students to do what they need to do on those devices without it getting in the way. Now let's look at this in a slightly different way. Technology for IT versus technology for learning. Traditionally, technology was in the hands of the IT professionals, teaching students about how IT can be used. Focusing on productivity, word processing, access to the internet, or even thinking about how we might do coding. But those things are starting to change. We still focus on those as a subject area, but we're also starting to see how technology can support learning in all subject areas, providing accessibility, as we discussed before, alternative ways for students to access and share their own content. But go even further with thinking about learning design and even the use of learning spaces. Where does technology allow us to do things that we couldn't do before? And with that, IT has a huge role in making sure that those devices are set up and can be effectively used in the way that curriculum leaders may want to use them. We'll talk a little bit about the importance of digital literacy a little bit later, but making sure students understand the why, the where, the when, the how of technology impact is really, really important. And when we start to think about those different personas using technology, what does that mean for the IT admin as well? IT admins may start to focus on what they've always had to do. Get devices set up, manage the inventory, make sure devices are up to date and that they're compliant with school systems. But when those devices then go into the hands of the curriculum leader, the educator or the parent, some things slightly change. In the hands of the curriculum leader, they'll want to know that the device is specifically set up to meet the needs of the curriculum. Only then can they be sure that every teacher is going to use the device as it's needed for teaching of the subjects. Otherwise, teachers end up some using it, some don't use it. And that's difficult for a curriculum leader to start to think about how that curriculum is going to be taught. When we give it to the educators, we need to understand that teachers do not need technology to do their jobs. Technology can enhance how teaching is done and how students can learn, but there are lots of traditional teachers that will say that they don't need technology to do that. One of the arguments is that technology can get in the way of teaching and learning. So those educators need to be supported by IT to see how the introduction of technology into the classroom is a positive and is focused on teaching and learning alone. Educators want the devices to make their lives easier and the lives of students easier, supporting things like assessment and feedback without them having to be IT professionals themselves. Workload is an issue that faces teachers globally. Introducing technology could be seen as an introduction of more workload. So IT has an important role to make sure that teachers are empowered to take control of those devices in their own classrooms. And that goes for parents and carers as well. With one-to-one devices going home, parents and carers want to know that they can manage the devices when they're in their homes as well, so that they don't become a distraction or a change in those family rules and systems that have already been set up, because that will impact on the whole deployment of the device, because parents won't be on board with what schools are trying to achieve. Providing parents and carers with support mechanisms that mean they are in control of those devices, even if they're not managing them, is a critical step in this whole process. Let's look a little bit deeper at some of the strategies for supporting educators, students and parents as these devices are used specifically with learning intentions in mind. Starting with the educators. As we said, teachers don't need technology to do their jobs, but technology can have a huge impact on what they do in their classrooms. And that is primarily supported by training and ongoing professional learning. Making sure that educators feel confident in using those devices and supported to know that those devices are being used solely for the purpose of education and not causing distractions or lack of focus is critical. And that can be done in many ways. Regular training sessions on emerging tools, creating on-demand video tutorials or help guides, or implementing tech ambassadors, teachers that might bridge that gap between IT and the classroom, who can support their peers. Next, think about how we can streamline that classroom technology management. How do we make sure that teachers are still in control of the things in their classroom that are taking place? When they can just take away those distractions when it may be causing a distraction in the classroom. So technology is just a tool that supports learning when the teachers want those devices to be used effectively. How do we support those software updates and device configurations to reduce disruptions so that teachers can trust that the device is set up exactly as it needs to be and isn't going to be a cause for concern in the middle of a lesson when something starts to change? And we can personalise IT support for teachers. One-to-one training sessions, specialised assistance, specialised setup on an individual's device to make sure it works specifically to how they want it to be used. And the same goes for students. How do we make sure that we have equality and access for all students? Do we provide them with loaner devices or support for underprivileged students where those devices may go home? How can we make sure that those devices are set up in a personalised way so that individuals get the benefit from the accessibility features that are built into many of the devices that they're going to use? Specifically from an Apple point of view, there are so many accessibility features that may actually reduce the IT admin of other support mechanisms that are doing the same thing. Both understanding from the IT side and the student side on those accessibility tools is critical to make sure students get the most out of their devices for their learning. And then we can also start to think about how we can improve response times for tech-related issues in classrooms. The time it takes for students to reset passwords or get different access, having to email IT admins and increase help desk tickets. Reducing that friction point in the classroom to make sure students are just using devices when they need to, and making sure IT help desk tickets do not go through the roof because of password resets or passcodes getting lost or forgotten. Empowering the classroom educators between their role of teaching and supporting students is critical as long as it doesn't take up more workload. And then let's think about their understanding of cybersecurity issues. One thing that we talk a lot about is the balance between privacy and security. Students using technology in classrooms should be using it to focus on learning. Having them blocked from inappropriate content is critical in that process, so they're not accessing things they shouldn't be accessing and they're focused specifically on what they should be doing. But their privacy is equally important. Students do have access to their own personal devices and have an understanding of what they should and shouldn't be able to do within some parameters. And this is where digital literacy is a really critical part of the journey. We don't want to scare students from using technology because they fear it's being used as a surveillance tool. We want students to understand the impact of their decisions that they're making. So stopping them from seeing inappropriate content and then having an education system which supports them with knowledge and understanding of what they should and shouldn't do means that they're going to be safe and secure on any device, not just school-owned devices. Because when they pull their personal device out of their pocket or use one at home, we want to make sure they're equally protected from those dangers. Finally, the parents. A critical part of this, because use of technology in schools is very different to probably how they saw technology used when they were young learners themselves. So how do we provide that parental support? Equally, providing the training and support that we may give to school teachers or students is a critical step in this. How do they use technology effectively in their own lives? How can they support their child in their understanding of technology use for development of their learning needs? And also, that's cybersecurity at home. How can we support parents with an understanding of what should and shouldn't be done and give them the tools to enable them to make sure that their child is safe, not only on a device which is provided by school, but on a device that they're setting up for themselves? This way, education becomes its sole purpose of educating all people to be better with the use of technology. Workshops are a critical way to do this, providing guides for parental controls, security best practices, and how they may access online learning platforms to support learning beyond the classroom. Finally, let's take a look at the role of Jamf in supporting educational leadership throughout all of these stages. So technology that's deployed has an impact on learning, teaching, and a return on investment, not only in terms of financial investment, but also the investment in time, training, and leadership. These are just a few things that Jamf will focus on to make sure that that whole process is fully integrated, that IT admins' roles that are ever evolving, as we've discussed, are supported at all steps. The critical elements of device management will be supported from that remote need. As more devices start to be deployed, IT admins don't need to be in all places at all times because that 0-day support is in place. All the devices can be kept up to date, apps kept up to date, to make sure that they're focused on what they need to be used without IT having to run around and support in person for all of these devices. That content filtering and network threat prevention is in place to make sure that the devices are focused on their sole purpose of learning without the threats of inappropriate content or cyber attacks taking place. And when those accidents do happen, we know those devices are going to be protected. We talked about the support for teachers, students, and parents. Jamf provides education apps which help empower those users to make sure that they get the most out of technology without it impacting on time or access to things that shouldn't be looked at. Now let's take a look at this in a slightly different way. We know that Apple devices are chosen for their ability to support accessibility, creativity, mobility, and many more things. Jamf provides tools for management to make sure that those devices are specifically set up for those end users' needs. We spoke about curriculum planning to make sure that the right apps are on the right devices for the right students at the right time. IT can do that really easily within Jamf to make sure that everything is set up so that teachers do not need to be the IT professional in the classroom and reduce those IT help desk tickets to ask for additional things. Return to service, for example, is a fantastic way to make sure that those loaned out devices can quickly and easily be reset up for the next person to use them without any privacy concerns about the previous user's data still being on the device. These are essential ways to make sure that you have a robust management in place, but we go even further to make sure that management takes place within the classrooms as well. Jamf Teacher, Jamf Student, Jamf Parent, combined with Apple Classroom, all support that next step in that journey of device use in schools. Jamf Teacher allows teachers to take control of what is on the device and what can be accessed by students at any given time, further focusing the device on its use for learning and teaching and nothing else. The ability to remove restrictions like the camera or microphone or ability to airdrop to each other, taking away Apple Intelligence features when they're not purposely used in that curriculum session. And students can update and personalize their device, downloading self-service apps as they need to meet their personalized needs. And when the device goes home, we offer those same tools through Jamf Parent for parents or carers to make sure devices are set up that meet the needs of home at that time. Coupled with Apple Classroom, in the classroom, we see Jamf Teacher as the tool that sets up learning and Apple Classroom as the tool that helps facilitate learning throughout the duration. And we're critically important step is empowering teachers to build unique solutions to their classrooms. This is not about the apps that are used for the specifics of teaching and learning, but apps that cover the workflow from assessment, feedback, support for handwriting, math development, or providing students alternative ways to view information or share their information back. Jamf integrates and configures all of these applications to make sure they're seamlessly set up for that end user so that they don't have to worry about all of the processes that may be needed to take place to get these things set up. IT admins can do it once for all of the devices. Teachers focus on their use in the classroom. And then finally, wrap all that up with a layer of security that makes sure those devices are going to be focused on their purpose in the classroom without impacting on any dangers such as inappropriate content on websites or the network threats. We believe that security is essential in making sure that this whole process is focused on learning and teaching. What you don't want as an IT admin is to put these devices out into the hands of learners and then people rely on those devices to do their roles because curriculum has been built around it, and then something go wrong and we lose learning days as a result. So a critical step is making sure networks, content filtering, app security is all in place to make sure this is just part of a deployment that can be focused and trusted throughout its journey. Now, this is just the start of a journey. This webinar was here to spark a thought process, to give IT leaders an insight into the possibilities with Apple devices and how Jamf can support that journey from IT deployment through to classroom use and beyond. Now let's just leave you with an additional resource that can support you in your ongoing thinking. The Jamf School Classroom Guide was designed to support some of those discussions around technology use in the classroom and how Jamf supports flexible learning environments for teachers and students. Scan the QR code to grab hold of this ebook and find out some more information about how Jamf can support. And talking about support, Jamf Nation is a fantastic place to go. A community of IT leaders of over 100,000 discussing best practices and access to a wealth of resources and third-party tools. You can create a free account today and join in the conversation and find out how other IT admins are using Jamf to support their deployments. And our marketplace is a tool and resource to help make your Jamf platform even more useful. We talked about those integrations and configurations. Here you can find out all of the different ways that you can support your Jamf deployment to make sure that it meets end users' needs.